126 athletes from 45 countries. The men's World Half Marathon Championship, and a very, very strong field. A field which contains some big names from the track, some real talent on the roads at half marathon and marathon distance. And it has to be said, it would be a brave man who would try to predict the winner here today. Great names like Haile Gebrselassie, Khalid Scar, Saleh Hissu. We've got a very strong Kenyan contingent as they head off into the streets of Bristol. 2 laps, and tactics could well be important here today.
Well, it's good to be here in Bristol for an international event of this caliber. I can't ever remember an event of real significance in athletics happening in Bristol. But over the years, the Bristol Athletic Club have been one of the major athletic clubs, a real strong force in cross-country running, road running, and on the track, men's and women's section. So it's good for a club like Bristol Athletic Club to be hosting an event of this caliber. And one of my teammates in my years ago running against me was a Bristol athlete, Nick Rose, who was an outstanding athlete over 5,000 and 10,000 metres and eventually on the roads. And Nick coaches the young women's team in Bristol Athletic Club, and really there is some strong support for athletics down here in Bristol. And as you can see, the crowds have turned out in some force to watch a race which we hope is going to be as exciting as we anticipate, because there are some class athletes in this field.
Well, the course could well be fast. It's certainly very flat, conditions much better than we might have anticipated. All sorts of talk about gale force winds, but they could be fairly protected from the wind, certainly as they wind their way through the city centre, and it will be showing off Bristol at its best, hopefully. The sun is still shining. And of course, for many of these athletes who've taken part in big city marathons, city half marathons, they'd normally be used to seeing somebody taking out the early pace, but just at this point they're all just having a little look at each other. This is an individual race as well, of course, as a team competition in which the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, maybe the Tanzanians will figure highly. I'm talking about Haile. There he is, Haile Gebrselassie, just tucked in the pack there. We'll start to pick out 1 or 2 other people in the race for you as they go through. Ethiopians, as I said, with a very, very strong team here. And some question marks, I guess, over Haile Gebrselassie. He's moving up to the marathon distance, and this is the first time we've seen him really take on the big names on the roads over the half marathon distance here today. They've completed 2 miles, and still a big, strong pack there. This young man, John Yuda, tipped by 1 or 2 to run very well. He's certainly been performing brilliantly on the roads this season. The Tanzanians and Henrik Ramala for the first time, as I was talking about, the Tanzanians moving to the front. And, well, he's making maybe a first bid to try and break up some of this pack. Just having a little glance behind to see whether anybody's interested. Yuda immediately slots in behind him. 1 or 2 of the Kenyans moving up through the pack as well, but certainly Ramala just picking up the pace there. Maybe decided the first couple of miles were a little slow.
He just darted through on the inside there on the pavement, which he's not supposed to do. It's a road race. I'm a bit concerned about the Kenyans and the Ethiopians and the Moroccans. They're running on the pavement there. You can see the group of them there, and the course is measured going around the bend on the road. Well, look, if they keep cutting across the corners, they're going to run a bit less than a half marathon, and the rules are you've got to stay on the road, but nobody's told them.
The Kenyans, it has to be said, have not really got involved in this early cat and mouse games that we've seen as we see the Clifton Suspension Bridge and then look back down the valley of the River Avon and find the athletes on the bottom there, and they'll be having a good view of the bridge. But I tell you what, there'll not be many of them looking up at it, I don't think.
Certainly won't be looking at it, Steve, but if you look at the valley there, the forecast high winds would have been really severe conditions if it hadn't been as windy as we were expecting. So they'll be delighted with these conditions. And there's the leading group, and just at the back of the leading group we can see Matt O'Dowd, who's the athlete who we expected to run very well, number 86, Matt O'Dowd, just at the back of the group, running very strongly. And if you look ahead of him, he's looking at a whole bunch of top-class international athletes, Africans in the main, with the odd Italian there, number 101. That's Eriba, the Italian representing Italy, but he's actually another Moroccan. However, there's the group. There's about 15, 20 athletes, and just at the back of that group, a good performance, good solid run so far by Matt O'Dowd. We're expecting a good performance from him, and this is a great start.
Well, there's the famous SS Great Britain, moored on the far side of the road that the athletes are running down, one of the famous sights of Bristol. And John Yuda still leading. Gebre Selassie looked very, very comfortable in second place. He's been content to cover the moves, but he's never been far away from the lead. Salah Hissu 127 running very well, coming back from many injury problems. The former world champion, world record holder at 10,000 metres. The Kenyans, 4 or 5 of them in this lead group, and the group just beginning to break up slightly. Tanzanians still well represented apart from Yuda. We've got Faustin Baha also further back in the pack. Other 2 Ethiopians in there, Jefar and Tola, to keep Gebre Selassie company.
Well, John Yuda happy to lead as the athletes approach the 10,000 metre point. Interestingly enough, Yuda leads from the 2 former world 10,000 metre record holders. That's the former world record holder. That's Salah Hissu. The current world record holder for 10,000 metres, Gebre Selassie. These athletes just about now approaching the 10,000 metre point. It'll be interesting to see how fast they're going. Has the pace picked up a little? It looks to 28:51 through 10,000 metres. So they're about half a minute outside the 60-minute pace that these athletes were anticipating. So they're running around 61-minute pace for the half marathon, which tells you that at the back of that group, Matt O'Dowd is running an exceptional race. But it also tells me that this race is going to be fearsome in the last 5 or 7,000 metres, because they really are going to go for it. You can sense the athletes are comfortable. They're running along at a pace being provided, a good pace being provided by John Yuda. And now Gebre Selassie moves alongside John Yuda. Salah Hissu moves alongside Gebre Selassie. So the 2 10,000 metre runners beyond their track distance now into the second half of the race, and always the second half of a half marathon, as indeed the second half of a marathon, the crucial element of the distance. Has they got the stamina? We know how good they are on the track. Are they good enough to go the extra distance? The same distance again on the roads.
Well, they've just passed the new exploratory there. New attraction here in Bristol, but not a glance from the athletes as they come towards the end of this first lap, coming back right into the city centre. And look at that big group that's still there. Still a large group for this stage of the race, not too far away from the halfway mark, and really the race has not started yet. John Yuda of Tanzania, the long-time leader, but really that's all he's been doing. He's just been leading. He hasn't been forcing the pace at all. He's led them at a steady pace. The group has broken up gradually, slowly, and they've just been dropping off the back of that pack one by one as they come through the start-finish line for the first time. One more lap to go as we see them all coming through. Matt O'Dowd of Great Britain is now off that leading pack, but still running well. And the crowds here in the centre of Bristol offering encouragement. And maybe soon we'll start to see 1 or 2 of the big names start to force the pace a little bit.
Well, they're now under the second lap. 2 approximately equal laps for the men's half marathon. And if you look at the talent that's beginning to gather at the front, Salah Hissu, former world record holder for 10,000 metres and world champion at 5,000 metres. Gebre Selassie in the front. And here's Matt O'Dowd, the leading Briton, just inside the top 30 and running a very good race. As we look at the front, there's 2 Gebre Selassie, 2 Khalid Skar, the former Olympic 10,000 metre champion, 2 Salah Hissu, and these athletes are now being joined by a Kenyan team which is less renowned, but nonetheless talented Kenyan athletes in that group. All the red lights are on there, but nobody's paying any attention to them.
Khalid Skar struggling now. the man who said he could come here and perform very well, who said he's in great shape again, said I can run 2 hours 4 or 5 for the marathon. Well, on the evidence of this, I'm not so sure about that, but certainly Khalid Scar trying to get back to top form. Former winner of this race back in 1994, but he's not going to win it today. Now just look at this pack now, it's getting very, very interesting. John Yuda there on his own from Tanzania. We've got the 3 Ethiopians who we've mentioned. We've got the Kenyans, Peter Chebet is there, Evans Ruto is there. Henrik Ramala of South Africa is still in that group, and Ramala went through a bit of a bad patch and has managed to get himself back involved there at the back of that leading group, wearing 158 in the South African vest. As the other Moroccan 125, Jouad, is now finding himself with what, a 4 or 5 meter gap, and that will be difficult for him to close up again.
3 Kenyans, 3 Ethiopians, most of them on the road and one of them on the pavement again. Gebri Selassie, this time John Yuda looks around for the first time. He's led most of the way, he's been keen to lead, he's led them at a steady pace, and he looks over his shoulder and he sees the athlete you least want to see when you look over your shoulder at distance races, and that's Gebri Selassie. There's Henrik Ramala in the yellow, green and yellow vest of South Africa. 3 Kenyans in that group, Evans Ruto, Peter Chebet. 3 Ethiopians, Tola, Jafar and Gebri Selassie, and then John Yuda, the leader. The other Moroccan dropping off the back, but it's another distance race, once again dominated by the Africans. They really have taken over distance running in every aspect, from 1500 meters right up to and including the marathon. And here's the Tanzanian Yuda, and there's the great one, Haile Gebri Selassie, right on his shoulder.
An intriguing battle starting to develop now. 2-3 men with track speed, particularly of course Gebri Selassie. Most of them though, their expertise lies on the roads, some at the marathon distance, some at the shorter distance. Some great experience there, but some new talent as well. John Yuda, just 22 years of age, only really been at the forefront of world athletics in the last year or so, but this, the biggest race of his life so far.
Now the race down to 7 or 8 men. 1 Tanzanian, Yuda, who's been leading all the way. 3 Ethiopians, including Gebri Selassie. 2 Kenyans, and then Henrik Ramala, the former silver medalist in this championship. These athletes approaching the 15-kilometer point. Now there's the 15-kilometer point. 40 minutes, 43 minutes, so they're just outside the 60-minute pace, but they're starting to increase the overall tempo as we expected. John Yuda's been consistently the man to lead the race. Gebri Selassie, we know what a kind of finish he's got. We know he'll be happy to sit there as they go through the 15-kilometer point. Just over 3 miles remaining in the men's World Half Marathon Championship. Tanzania, Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa at the back. 3 Ethiopians, 2 Kenyans, 1 Tanzanian in the lead. Henrik Ramala of South Africa at the back of that group. So now the group is down between 7 men. As they are now inside the last 2 miles of the men's World Half Marathon Championship. John Yuda has run a fabulous race. Gebri Selassie now once again looks relaxed, looks like the figure we see on the track. I thought he went through a little bit of a dodgy patch just past the halfway point, but it looks as though he's back in control now. And if you think about it, Gebri Selassie will be concentrating and concentrating. He knows he can outsprint his teammates. There's now 3 of them in contention there, as Tola, the Olympic bronze medalist, drops back into 4th place. About 1.5 miles remaining. Gebri Selassie, the sprinter, John Yuda, the man who's won lots of races all around the world this summer, and Jafar right behind Gebri Selassie. Now is Gebri Selassie just going to leave it and just going to try and concentrate on the finish? His first step beyond the 10,000 meters with any seriousness. the world champion at 10,000 meters, the world record holder at 10,000 meters, 2 times Olympic champion at 10,000 meters. Now, is he going to be one of the greats of the marathon? And the half marathon is the route to find that out.
The marvellous sight of the Clifton Suspension Bridge marks the point at which the athletes turn for home. And they turn for home in a real sense in this World Half Marathon Championship, because they are into the real final stages. And if this were a race on the track, you'd be now thinking about the sprint finish and the kick. And we're down to 3 men, 2 Ethiopians and 1 Tanzanian. John Yuda of Tanzania leading the great Haile Gebrselassie and his teammate Jafar. And as they move back down towards the city centre along the River Avon, they'll now know that there's about 1.75 miles of this race left to run, and the long-time leader John Yuda must be well aware of the imposing figure of Haile Gebrselassie just sitting there. He's looked very comfortable all the way through this, and it would be a very, very brave man to bet against anybody beating Gebrselassie in the final stages. But it has to be said that we haven't seen John Yuda in this sort of company. He's won many races on the world circuit, so he must have some speed at the end of the race, so let's not hand it to Gebrselassie too early.
John Yuda, Haile Gebrselassie, Jafar of Ethiopia, and now Henrik Ramala closing down on Tola, coming into 4th place here. Tola looks over his shoulder, gets a bit of a surprise. The Olympic bronze medalist sets the team positions by 1, but Henrik Ramala spent a little bit of his energy early on trying to encourage the runners to run a bit faster. Well, they've taken his advice, but they're doing it in the last part of the race. The last 5,000 meter split was the fastest of the whole race, 14 minutes and 9 seconds. The group now down to 3 athletes. We had a leading group earlier to the halfway point of about 20 athletes, including Matt O'Dowd of Great Britain, who's at the back of the leading group. He's running a strong race in 28th place, but once again, the African athletes, the Ethiopian athletes, the Kenyans, the Moroccans, and the South Africans. Henrik Ramala leading a strong field of South Africans, going through the halfway point, going through the first 5,000 meters in 14:26, the second 5,000 meters in 14:25, and then the third 5,000 meter split, the fastest of the race, 14 minutes and 9 seconds. And that last 5,000 meter split brought the field down from about 15 to 3 athletes. And now, for the first time, John Yuda, the Tanzanian in the orange vest, has been leading all the way. And now, for the first time, approaching the last mile of the World Half Marathon Championships, Haile Gebrselassie, the great one, the 10,000 meter world record holder, 10,000 meter world and Olympic champion, for the first time testing himself over the longer distance in anticipation of his eventual step up to the marathon. And what an advertisement this looks like it is for Haile Gebrselassie, now beginning to stretch it out ahead of his teammate number 71, Jafar, the Ethiopian marathon record holder. And now Haile Gebrselassie looks like he's going to finish a year which has not been great by his standards. He's won titles on the track at the world level. He's held world records at 5 and 10,000 meters. He's never been tested over this long distance, but he looks comfortable at this point in the race. And let's not forget what a fabulous finish Haile Gebrselassie has. When he crosses the line, if it keeps going the way it does, he'll be surrounded by his fans who are here in the state, in the city square, and also by the big-time race promoters from all around Europe. We want him to run the marathon. It could be in London next spring.
The race now just between 2 men. And how many times have we seen a couple of Ethiopians at the head of a world distance race, and how many times have we seen Haile Gebrselassie come away to win. Just his teammate stands between him now on the first major title on the roads and the first mark of what should promise to be an extremely successful career. Not the longer distances. There's the big gap to John Yuda of Tanzania, who's run a fabulous race. They're passing the SS Great Britannia for the second and last time, and Gebrselassie knows that the finish is not too far away, and that's where, of course, he'll come into his own. This man's run a great race, though, Brendan Yuda. He's a new name, and he should be very pleased with his performance. He needs to keep working to hold off Ramallah, but he should be rewarded with a medal here.
He certainly should, and he certainly has run a fabulous race. Gebrselassie leading from his teammate Jafar. They ran a test race over this distance a few weeks ago in Ethiopia, and then selected the team. Not surprisingly, the man to lead the Ethiopian team was Haile Gebrselassie. And as we look at him over a half marathon, he's anticipating a move up to the marathon. And if you look at the athlete next to him, his teammate Jafar has already run 2:06 for a marathon. So you imagine what Gebrselassie can do over a marathon if he's fully fit. But here he comes, just looking at the split times. We're anticipating the 21-kilometer point. I think they're going to be just outside 60 minutes for the half marathon, but a world title beckons for one of these two Ethiopians. You would sense it might be Gebrselassie because of his strong finish, but Jafar hasn't given up on this one yet. 58 minutes of running on the roads of Bristol behind the pair of them, and they've strung the field out by just applying more and more pressure in the late stages. It's become traditional in distance running these days that the second half of the race is faster than the first. And for once there, I just noticed Gebrselassie looked over his shoulder with a little bit of anxiety, and that was followed by a glance over his shoulder by Jafar. He knows the minimum he's going to get is silver. Is it going to be gold, and which one is it going to be for? 58.5 minutes as they approach the square here. Good crowds have turned out in the middle of Bristol to support these athletes. Which one of these two Ethiopians are we going to see? They're definitely going to win gold medals today, the pair of them in the team race, but who's going to win the individual?
Real anticipation growing at the finish line. The crowds have gathered. Bristol has been waiting for this moment for a long time to see the world's best running through its streets, and they come no better than Haile Gebrselassie, who just takes one more glance just to check that Jafar is the only man who stands between him and the world title. John Yuda of Tanzania, the long-time leader, looks as though he could well have a battle to hold off Henrik Ramallah for the third spot, but they're approaching the last few hundred meters now. Haile Gebrselassie, the man who on so many occasions has kicked away to win a gold medal. As the time starts to approach the 1 hour mark, they just have 100 meters or 150 meters or so to go when they come back into the finishing straight. He's aware of that. He starts his kick now. Haile Gebrselassie, the double Olympic champion, the man who's won 4 world titles, over 10,000 meters on the track, pulling away from his teammate Jafar. Jafar is not giving it up, and Haile Gebrselassie has once more run away to take his 10th world title, this time on the roads at the World Half Marathon. A brilliant run by the little man once more, pushed all the way by Jafar, just outside the 1 hour. That would have been nice, a great bonus for him to have got under the hour. The long-time leader, Yuda, a well-deserved bronze medal for the young Tanzanian. Ramallah takes 4th place. But there were questions about whether Haile Gebrselassie could come here and move up to the longer distance, whether he could show the strength of character that he has done on the track so many times, and the turn of speed as well. And you almost have to feel sorry for his teammates, because they must have known all along what the result was likely to be, as we see Evans Ruto crossing the line. But it was a great race. Yuda did all of the hard work early on. But Gebrselassie was always there, always covering the moves and just waiting for the right moment to strike. Result then of the men's race, Haile Gebrselassie winning in 60 minutes and 3 seconds, a new personal best for him, just ahead of his teammate Jafar, twice the bronze medalist before. He takes the silver this time, also in a personal best, and a great run by John Yuda of Tanzania, a personal best 60 minutes and 12 seconds to take the bronze medal ahead of Ramallah of South Africa.
Now let's see what happened in the women's race.
Away they go. 2 laps around the streets of Bristol, taking in the sights along the way, but that won't bother the athletes at all. They'll be concentrating 100% on the task in hand here, and what a task it is for Paula Radcliffe, Brendan. We saw Susan Chepkemei, the woman who's run the fastest half marathon in the world, and she did that in Lisbon earlier on in the year. She went up to Tyneside just a couple of weeks ago in the absence of Radcliffe and put on a very, very good show with her teammate Joyce Chepchumba, and you would think that those two are the ones who will stand in the way of Paula Radcliffe here today.
As we watch the start of the Women's World Half Marathon Championships through the city centre of Bristol for the first couple of kilometres, and then out on a very level, very flat course. The conditions for the men's race were strong. The conditions for the women's race, the wind's getting up a little, so it's getting a bit cooler. They're still conducive to good distance running, and this is going to be a very competitive race. And this time the spectators are going to have something to shout for, as always with Paula Radcliffe. Whatever anyone says about her, you always get value for your money from Paula Radcliffe.
Well, Bristol have waited a long time to put on a show here, and the crowds have certainly come out in their numbers in the central area here. There's a big fun run taking place a couple of hours after all of the action in the main event. I'm sure some of those watching on the sidelines will be looking forward to their own chance to run on the same course here as the best in the world who've gathered here in Bristol. And Paula Radcliffe has been waiting for this moment for a long time, the chance to win a world title on home soil with home support. She did it all the way over in Mexico, as I said, last year, and I think she really has been relishing the opportunity. She's prepared very well for this race. She's been in great shape. Took the brave decision not to run the Great North Run, not to take on her main rivals in that race in order to prepare properly for this event here. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what tactics she adopts. I think we were expecting pretty poor weather conditions. A lot of talk yesterday about gale force winds and how that would affect the tactics and how there wouldn't be too much action early on. But of course in the men's race we saw a very, very quick race, almost under the 1 hour, so the course can produce the quick times, and the conditions certainly more benign than we were expecting. So Paula may well think, well, that may mean I'm in the shape, I know I'm in shape to run quick here, and I may just make this a quick race from a fairly early stage. Wearing 31, Adire, right just behind Paula Radcliffe. Chichi from Kenya wearing 67. The leader though, Noguchi. Japanese were rather disappointed, I think, with their overall performances in Edmonton in the marathon. They've adopted the same sort of approach as the Ethiopians. They have a squad training group and they try and pick the best athletes who are in shape to go to the major championships and indeed to the marathon and at half marathon as well. But certainly the men didn't run particularly well earlier on this morning. And it may well be down to the women to fly the flag for Japan here. Just the numbers to remind you to look out for. You can see further back in the pack. In fact, right at the back of this pack, Joyce Chepchumba is wearing 64. Happy to be there at the minute, just running alongside a teammate. Chepkemei is wearing 65. She's in about 8th or 9th place at the moment, but certainly not going anywhere near the front.
The athletes now approaching the 5 kilometre point. 5 kilometres almost completed. Just over 16 minutes. That's just outside 67-minute pace, but 16 minutes and 2-3 seconds for the first 5,000 metres. So the pace is steady. This is the sort of time that these athletes have run before. Paula Radcliffe particularly run 67.07 for the half marathon when she won the Great North Run. But the first 5,000 metres of the 21-kilometre race, so a quarter of the race completed, and the group is pretty early, has settled down to a few numbers, and all the talent is in this group. The fastest half marathon runner in the world Susan Chepkamai is in that group. The Kenyan athlete number 65, Paula Radcliffe, last year's champion, clearly in the group in second place, and just behind Paula Radcliffe, the athlete who beat Paula in the World 10,000 meter championships, Burhan Adiri, a tall Ethiopian athlete, looking over her shoulder quite a lot, just checking up to see what's going on. Joyce Chepchumba is in that group too, and the leader, number 58, Mizuki Noguchi, one of the stable of talented Japanese athletes. We expect them to figure highly in this race. But Paula Radcliffe, while she might be the favourite for this event, let's not oversell it. She's got some talented athletes to beat. Alana Maya, the former world half marathon champion, Adire, the silver medalist in the world 10,000 meter championships, Chepkamai, the fastest 10,000 meter half marathon runner of all times in the group. So Paula Radcliffe, we know she's ready. She ran well last weekend in the Southern Road Relay Championships. We know she's had a good season. We know she's capable of this distance. She's getting ready to step up to the marathon, to run the London Marathon. She's in good form, having trained in Font-Romeu for this race. And Paula Radcliffe now, with the opportunity of winning a world title in front of a British crowd, would be something she would relish, I know. She was particularly disappointed when she heard the news about Pickett's Lock not being elected to stage the World Championships in 2005, an event that she expects to figure largely in. But there she is, Paula Radcliffe, number 39, a real inspiration to British distance runners, to European distance runners, in fact to the whole distance running community. 100% athlete, the one who gives of her best, prepares her very best, and she's got a real talent, and her talent, I think, is her mental ability. Just over a quarter of the distance completed, and the race is now down to 11 contenders. Thankfully, included in that group of contenders is Paula Radcliffe.
Well, that group certainly has been whittled down, Brendan, and I've just been trying to find out where Joyce Chepchumba is, because I've got a feeling that Chepchumba is starting to struggle. She was certainly on the back of the group earlier on, wasn't interested in being near the front. There she is. That's Joyce Chepchumba, and the first of the really big names, if you like, at a very early stage in the race, it has to be said as well. Finding herself now detached. She's there with one of the Ethiopians, that's her Kessel, wearing 32 beside her there. But Joyce Chepchumba, that's a surprise, Brendan, to see her struggling this early.
Just settling down at the front now with some intent. Paula Radcliffe looks as though she wants to stretch the field out and make this a strong run race.
Well, this group now down to 7 athletes. Alana Myers look fairly comfortable. Chepkamai looks comfortable, 65. Leg Jui, the little Moroccan there, wearing 71. We've seen her many, many times, of course, on the track, and performing well here in the World Half Marathon.
Well, 3 of the fastest runners ever over the half marathon are in this field, and all 3 of them are in the group. Paula Radcliffe in the lead, number 39. Number 65 in the red vest of Kenya, that's Susan Chepkamai. She's the fastest half marathon runner ever. And also in that group is Alana Maya, who's run 66 minutes 44 seconds for the half marathon, which is slightly faster than Paula has. But having said that, Paula's only run a couple of half marathons. So timing, she's got some talent around her. She's got some track talent around her. She's got the strong athlete from Japan right next to her, and this time she's leading and she's beginning to apply some pressure. She's not trying to break away from this field yet, but I'm sure she's trying to put the other athletes in an area which disturbs them and which puts them under some pressure and which hurts them. And there's the leading group. Radcliffe, Noguchi of Japan, Idiri of Ethiopia, Chepkamai Nochichi of Kenya, Legzoe of Morocco, and Alana Maya of South Africa. So there's 2 Kenyans in that group, 1 Ethiopian, Paula Radcliffe, and alongside her, the Japanese athlete.
Just through the 9-kilometer mark then. And Paula just turning the heat up slightly. Keeping the pressure on. Without yet making the big move, without really putting her foot down. She's looked very composed, very relaxed, has to be said that 2-3 of the others in that group with a similar outlook. Alana Meyer looked very cheerful at the press conference yesterday, said she's now really concentrating on her performances on the roads, and half marathon and marathon distance still felt as though she had some really good performances in her. 34 years of age now, Meyer. And she'll just wait to let the action unfold ahead of her and hope that the likes of Radcliffe can whittle this group down one by one. So Radcliffe of Great Britain, Noguchi of Japan, Legzui of Morocco, Adire from Ethiopia, the two Kenyans, Susan Chepkemei 65, or Chichi 67, and Alana Meyer. It's down to these athletes as they start to head back towards the big crowds which are gathered here in the central area, and Paula Radcliffe will get huge support as she comes through here, as the them will embark on what we expect to be the real action in the second part of the race.
Well, I think there's 6 in that leading group now, and I think the medals in the individual race are down to 6 athletes, all 6 from different countries. There's 1 Ethiopian, 1 Kenyan, 1 South African, 1 Moroccan, 1 Japanese athlete, and the crowd's favourite, and she's going to get a real boost in a moment when she comes into the city centre here. Crowds lining up to watch this event. Paula Radcliffe getting great support at all points. She's a very well-known, probably one of Britain's best-known athletes, certainly our most prominent distance runner. And we can hear the crowds cheering as Paula Radcliffe leads a group of 6 athletes into the town square here in Bristol. 1 lap to go, almost at the halfway point, and Paula Radcliffe running a strong race, but she's got some talented athletes around her.
Through the finish line for the first time then. And it's Paula Radcliffe now who, maybe for the first time, really seriously starting to push on, really seriously trying to pick up the pace and break this group up a little bit more. Adire just slots in nicely behind her there. Noguchi, Chepkemei and Alana Meyer. The best distance runners in the world gathered here, and Paula Radcliffe heading them, and this really is a big push from Paula. She really is starting to move now.
It certainly is. She really is beginning to stretch them. She really is making an attempt now to try and win this World Half Marathon title. She's decided she's going to do it in the middle. She's got over a half an hour's running ahead of her, and she's pushing it so quickly that Alana Meyer, the South African former winner of this event, she's gone off the back very, very quickly, and this tells me a slight incline here. Paula Radcliffe working hard, driving very hard, and has got Adire still for company. She's got Chepkemei for company, and now Paula Radcliffe has quickly whittled this group down. There's Alana Meyer, former Olympic silver medalist, behind the great Dorado Tulu in '92 in Barcelona. She's run 21 races this year. I always think distance runners shouldn't run that many races. And there, Noguchi, the Japanese athlete who was leading them earlier on, she was up there, and then Paula Radcliffe has inserted some real pace into this event, and these two are quickly off the back there as Paula Radcliffe has 2 athletes for company. It looks to me as though she's running herself into a medal position, but she's got some company, she's got some talent with her. She's got 2 training partners, or former training partners, Chepkemei, number 65, and number 31, Adire. And now Paula Radcliffe in a familiar position, 40 minutes of running behind her, looking strong, looking relaxed, beginning to move and beginning to stretch. Even Chepkemei, she's the fastest ever runner at the half marathon, having run 65 minutes and 44 seconds on a slightly suspect course, let's be honest. But Paula Radcliffe, whose best is 67.07, knows that she's got the talent with her, and she really is putting them under pressure now. She's working extremely hard, let's have no doubt about it. This is an injection of pace. When we look at the overall split times, we'll know that this is going to be the fastest section of the race, as Chepkemei takes a quick shortcut across the... and these two now are coming under the pressure that Paula Radcliffe's applying.
And she's using all her nous here. She used the first incline to make the first initial break, and you just saw in that corner, every time she's going to a corner, every time she gets up another incline, she's just trying to push on, use her strength, knows that these are little pushes that have to be covered, and that saps the energy of the other athletes as well. And Paula just not letting them rest now. This will be a long, hard push for home. She won't let them settle. She won't let this pace drop. And already Adire, look at that, as we go up another little incline, round another corner, as Paula just keeps pushing and keeps pushing. Adire now starting to struggle as well. And this is good news for Paula Radcliffe, because if she gets this down to 1, then, well, who knows what can happen. Chepkamai, of course, in great shape, but at the minute it looks as though Paula Radcliffe is doing everything that is required of her. And Adire, the one we were beginning to get a little bit worried about, we think is now detached from that group, and it's down to 2.
It is down to 2, and Paula Radcliffe really is stretching them and testing them. She really is determined, and I've always thought that Paula Radcliffe's real strength in distance running was her mental application, her ability to get ready for a race, and then her ability to go into a race and carry out a race plan. It's all right having race plans in the weeks leading up to a race, but it's actually during the race and in the moments leading up to the couple of minutes before the start when real plans are actually forged. Now Paula Radcliffe, there's Adire, the World Championship silver medalist, finished just behind Tulu in that fabulous race recently in Edmonton, and now Adire is beginning to struggle as Paula Radcliffe and Chepkamai, the world record holder, if you want, for the half marathon. Paula Radcliffe really has applied herself now. She's got herself into a strong medal position. Has she done enough to make this the medal into another gold medal? Can she defend her title on the streets of Bristol? Let's face it, this is a good athlete behind her, Susan Chepkamai. Now Paula Radcliffe, when you've been leading in a race like this, and when you've been stretching them, and when you've succeeded in doing what she's done so far and got that group down to 2, then you come through a little patch mentally where it's very, very difficult, and this is very important. This is a crucial time for Paula Radcliffe. Can she summon up another amount of energy? She knows she's managed to do most of what she wanted to do, and there's now 2 of them left in contention for this gold medal. There's a long way to go, and has Paula Radcliffe got anything left? She's working very hard. She's accomplished part of her task, but she's found, once again, an African distance runner who's been able to go with her speed. Now, can she hang on? Can Chepkamai hang on? And has Paula Radcliffe got the energy and the application and the determination to make one more big effort?
Well, this is interesting, isn't it? Look there, Adire, who for so long looked as though she was going to provide a big threat, has disappeared off the first 2, now finds herself in a battle with Noguchi of Japan for the bronze medal. Certainly 3 of them at the moment. Milana Meyer is another 50 or 60 metres, maybe a little bit more behind these 2. They're around that roundabout now, heading back down towards the river. And as I said, the wind with them at this stage. And look at Paula now, she's pushing on again. And she really does want to use this part of the course. I think she'd like to have the gap before she comes into that tough last section. And this bit down here, the next couple of miles along here, could be really crucial. And look at this, Chepkamai having to try and work hard to stay with another effort being put in by Paula Radcliffe. You have to hand it to her. She just keeps going and keeps going, keeps asking the questions, keeps pushing on. She doesn't care whether somebody's still there. She doesn't lose confidence if the first move doesn't work. She then has another go, and she keeps doing it until it finally pays off. She's got rid of them one by one, and at the moment, Brendan, this looks as though it could be decisive. It looks as though Chepkamai not able to stay with this one.
This is a key point of the race now for Paula Radcliffe. We sensed when she made a big effort and got the group down to 2, then she had to summon up one more amount of energy, and look at the support she's getting. She really is testing them. The 15-kilometre point approaches, just over 3 miles remain. There's an awful lot can change, and she really is working hard, but she's so brave. 47 minutes and 45 seconds, just outside 67-minute pace, just about the time that Paula's run before. But there is Paula Radcliffe now with a chance to win this race. She's done it the hard way. She's taken the lead. She got the group from 7 athletes down to 6, then down to 5, and eventually down to 3. And then one big effort got rid of Burhan Adire, an athlete who Paula mentioned earlier in the week and saying she was concerned about. But now she's testing the world record holder, Susan Chepkamai.
As they head towards the bridge and the turnaround point, there it is. And Paula Radcliffe will be able to see exactly for herself just how much daylight there is between herself and Chepkemai. There she is. Turns now, and there'll be a glance as she disappears back into the tunnel, and Chepkemai will come out to make that turn herself, and that gap, if anything, I think is possibly getting bigger. We've already gone past 10 seconds, and that, I have to say, for Paula Radcliffe is very, very good news indeed. Despite the efforts of Chepkemai, that gap's certainly not closing, and now she'll almost be beginning to smell victory. Will be heading back towards the city centre and the big crowds that will be awaiting to give her a huge welcome in the centre here.
Well, Adiri there very quickly breaks away, and Paula Radcliffe now enjoying, dare I say, enjoying the atmosphere that she's generated. She's created such a lot of interest around this race. The people of Bristol have come out to support it tremendously well, and there's nobody today had greater support. Although they admired Haile Gebrselassie because he's one of the great athletes of all time, nobody's received greater support than Paula Radcliffe, and the news has just been conveyed to the crowds here in the square. They're actually clapping and cheering. 65 minutes of running completed, and I think Paula Radcliffe's going to run inside 67 minutes. A European record for Paula Radcliffe, a British record for Paula Radcliffe awaits. It looks certain that she's going to win the gold medal. Can she add to the gold medal? And she's one of the few athletes in the world that you would realise would be conscious enough. Halfway around the last part of the race, she shouted to her father, Peter, how far ahead am I? And he gave her the answer, you're far enough ahead. And now Paula Radcliffe is exploring her talent here in the late stages of a fabulous performance. A well-engineered, a well-coached, a well-planned out effort. Rosemary and Alex Stanton, who've been with her all the time in her preparation, well, they should be very proud of Paula Radcliffe on her way to a second World Championship gold medal.
The crowd roaring Paula Radcliffe home. This is what they wanted to see, this is what they've come for, this is what Paula Radcliffe really wanted. It will be another world title to Paula Radcliffe. She's still pushing on, she's not letting up. The finish line will come in decide as she comes round the top bend. There is rapturous applause. The crowd are cheering. Paula Radcliffe flying the flag for Great Britain. Paula Radcliffe coming home to take her third world title. She's the world half marathon champion once more. She's inside her personal best. A magnificent run by Paula Radcliffe. That was hard work, but it was fully deserved. She came here with all of the pressure on her, with all of the expectations of the crowd here in Bristol and all of you watching at home and all of us hoping that she could produce the goods, and she certainly did that. Susan Chepkemai coming in for the silver medal. She pushed Paula Radcliffe. She made sure that Radcliffe had to work hard. She made sure that it wasn't going to be an easy task, and it certainly wasn't. Chepkemai getting warm applause from the crowd here. They know that she is the best in the world before today. She was the fastest woman in the world, but she's come a second best to Paula Radcliffe here in Bristol. Well done to the two of them, a great race. Paula, full of smiles as you'd expect, as Adire of Ethiopia looks as though she's going to take the bronze medal. But I tell you what, that's another one of those races where we might be a little bit biased and tend to concentrate on the person who's won it. Paula Radcliffe, once more, stirring the emotions for those who followed her so many times on the track when she just hasn't been able to come away with the goods, but she's embarking on a new career now, and she's got every prospect of hitting the very top in the marathon, as she has done here in the half marathon today. The bronze medal goes to Adire of Ethiopia. Noguchi of Japan coming home in fourth place. In the women's race then, Paula Radcliffe taking the gold for Great Britain. A new championship record, a new personal best, 66 minutes and 47 seconds. Susan Chepkemai of Kenya took the silver, 67 minutes and 36 seconds. And Berhan Adire of Ethiopia took the bronze, 68 minutes and 17 seconds.